During a thunderstorm, an aging lion limped out of the mist, followed by 2 lionesses and a cub. He approached a grave, pressed his head to the soil, and let out a roar, not of anger, but of sorrow so deep it froze everyone in place. Then he dropped something into the mud, something long lost, something impossible. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The night it began, the sky fractured like glass, lightning tearing ragged wounds through the clouds above the savannah. Daniel Reed stood at his porch's edge, a silhouette against the flickering storm, his boots sunk ankle-deep in mud and instinct. He was not a man who feared the dark. Years among the broken, human and animal alike, had carved away the soft edges of caution. So when the sound came, not the thunder, but a thump, he knew it wasn't the wind. It was the kind of sound the earth makes when something massive falls wrong. Grabbing only his lantern and a canvas bag of supplies, Daniel stepped into the wild. He followed the sound beyond the clearing, past the wire fence that divided his world from the wilderness. His breath came slow. He wasn't young anymore. But urgency lent his legs a stiffness of purpose. What he found changed everything. A lion, male, full-grown, ribs like broken gates beneath torn flesh, lay twisted in a sprawl, half slumped over a snare that clung to his hind leg like rusted teeth. The metal had chewed deep. Blood pooled, mixing with rain and soil in a dark smear that glistened like oil. The beast lifted its head as Daniel approached, not with defiance, but with something that rooted the man in place. Silence. Understanding. The storm raged. Time folded. Daniel worked beneath the screaming sky, fingers numb, heart pounding like a drum in retreat. He cleaned the wound with rainwater, injected antibiotics, and cut the snare with the precision of a man who'd stitched more creatures than he'd spoken to that year. The lion's eyes never left him. No growl, no thrash, just breath and the weight of pain shared. When the wire fell away, Daniel whispered, "Silas." He didn't know why. It was just what came. The name sounded like old stone and dignity, like something that had always been. The lion didn't move. He only blinked. And then, slowly, Silas stood. Limping, he turned back to the wild. No roar, no rush. In the days that followed, Daniel found tracks near the edge of the brush. Once, a tuft of golden hair snagged on his fence. Silas had returned. Never close. Never gone. Each time Daniel saw those prints, he felt it. A thread, invisible but taut. Woven not from words, but from that single storm-soaked night, when mercy had crossed the line between man and beast, and been remembered. They called him the Graveyard Watcher. At first, it was just the children who noticed, the little ones who ran barefoot past the riverbank on their way to the schoolhouse. "The lion is back," they whispered, pointing through the trees to where the old acacia cast its shadows over a single, weather-worn grave. The adults dismissed it, until they saw him, exactly as before. Immense, sun-scarred, his mane streaked with age, Silas had returned, just as he had each year. But there was something sacred now in the stillness of him. He didn't act like a lion. He acted like a memory made flesh. He would not touch the villagers' goats, nor chase the dik-diks that rustled nearby. He'd simply appear at dawn, walk with grave certainty to the tree under which Daniel Reed had been laid, and lower his massive frame beside the stone. Then silence, motionless for hours, sometimes until dusk. Those who dared approach close enough swore he wept, though no one could say how a lion weeps. Perhaps it was in the way his chest rose and fell with a slow ache, or how he pressed his brow to the dirt like a beast in prayer. Whatever it was, it stripped the onlookers of noise. Even the children grew quiet. Even the birds, some said. In time, the story reached beyond the village. First, a ranger filmed him through binoculars and posted it online. The footage was grainy but undeniable. The lion, resting beside the grave, the same day as the year before. It went viral. "The Loyal King," one headline read. Another, "A Lion's Grief." And still Silas returned, every year. Tourists began arriving from Gulu and Kampala. Some cried, some brought flowers, laying them near the grave until the dirt was a bed of color. An American film crew tried to capture him up close once, drones buzzing overhead, but Silas didn't flinch. He simply stood, stared at the lens, then turned his back and vanished into the trees. They didn't return. Locals started leaving offerings, not for Daniel, but for Silas. Pieces of meat, hand-carved tokens. One old woman placed a small crucifix on the grave and whispered, "You are his guardian now." No one questioned why a lion would do such a thing. In a place where stories lived longer than buildings, it simply became known. Daniel had saved Silas once, and Silas, in his way, was still watching over him. But this year, the 10th year, the watchers saw something new. Just beyond the misted grass line, two figures followed behind the lion. One tall, one small, shapes that moved with him. The lion had not come alone. The clouds that morning had a weight to them, as if the sky itself were holding its breath. A thick mist clung to the red earth like a veil, and thunder grumbled on the horizon with the slow menace of something ancient waking. The villagers had gathered early, some out of habit, others because something unspoken had passed between them the night before. An intuition, a quiet summons. It was the 10th year since Daniel Reed's passing. Father Joseph stood by the grave with a Bible clutched in both hands, lips already moving through a prayer he'd whispered 100 times. But on that day, the words stopped mid-breath. A shape emerged from the mist. Silas. The lion was thinner now, his gait heavy with time. His mane, once the color of sunlit fire, had dulled to gray ash, and every step he took left a deeper impression in the softened earth. But his presence had only grown. There was something in the way he moved, deliberate, regal, burdened by memory. He limped toward the grave, the muscles of his haunches trembling faintly, but his eyes were clear, focused, unwavering. Then came the others. Two lionesses trailed behind him like shadows given form, their flanks sleek and alert. Between them trotted a cub, small, curious, its golden coat unmarred by scars or loss. It glanced at the people, at the tree, at the place where the air itself seemed to bend around the grave. And then it too grew still. Silas reached the grave and lowered himself with great effort. For a long moment, he simply rested his head against the earth. A breath, a heartbeat, and then the roar. It was not a sound made for warning. It was not hunger or challenge. It was grief, stripped of everything but truth. A deep, resonant mourning that poured from his chest like thunder given voice. It cracked against the tree trunks. Birds scattered, babies cried, and grown men wept without shame. When the sound died, Silas lifted a single paw and pressed it gently into the dirt before him. Something clinked as he withdrew it, and then he turned, slow and regal, and led the lionesses back into the mist. The cub looked back once, then followed. The silence that followed was unbearable. Father Joseph, trembling, stepped forward. He knelt at the edge of the grave and brushed the soil aside. There, half buried in the damp earth, lay a corroded chain, a rusted tag, worn letters still visible. D. Reed, USMC. Gasps broke through the silence like shattered glass. No one knew how Silas had found it, or how long he had carried it. But there it was, the proof that memory lives in more than men. It lives in lions, too. They say time smooths all things. Grief, memory, even truth. But in the village by the edge of Kidipo, time only carved the story deeper. The soil where Daniel lay became sacred, not because it belonged to a man, but because a lion had chosen to kneel beside it. No one ever figured out how Silas found that rusted tag, or what compelled him to carry it through storms and years in solitude. Theories bloomed. Some said he'd followed Daniel's scent long ago. Others whispered of something more, of knowing. But no one demanded answers. Not anymore. You don't interrogate a miracle. After the 10th visit, something shifted in the hearts of the people. The old, the young, even the ones who'd once scoffed at silly animal myths. They stood shoulder to shoulder in the rain, candles in hand, watching the grave long after the lions vanished into the trees. That night, not a soul spoke above a whisper. They didn't mourn Daniel alone. They mourned what his life had sparked, a quiet defiance against everything the world said couldn't be. The next year, they brought wildflowers. And the year after that, a schoolgirl placed a hand-drawn picture of Silas and Daniel under the acacia tree. By the 5th year, the spot had become more than a grave. It was a place where people believed again, in loyalty, in kindness, in the idea that love, real love, doesn't end when a heart stops beating. And then, one winter, Silas didn't come. A week passed. Then 2. No one said it aloud, but they knew. It was a ranger named Caleb who found him. Curled beneath the same acacia tree where Daniel had first knelt in the storm so many years ago. Silas lay as if sleeping, his breath gone but his body untouched. No wounds, no signs of struggle. Only the wind rustling his mane, now silvered and soft. Beneath his chin was a hollow in the dirt. Caleb would later say it looked like a pillow, as though the lion had lain down for one final rest beside memory. They buried him next to Daniel. No coffin, no ceremony, just a simple wooden sign carved by hand. Here lies proof that kindness never dies. Now, each year, someone still comes. Sometimes it's a child. Sometimes a man with weathered hands who says nothing. And sometimes, just before dusk, a lion's silhouette appears on the ridge, watching, unmoving, before vanishing like breath into the wind. Some say it's Silas's cub, now grown. Others say it's the story, returning to remember itself.